Welcome to the CBIA BizCast powered by Google. On this podcast, we dive into stories about Connecticut businesses.
Downs Construction actually came to my school.
And business leaders.
I think it's always also really important to be able to see a path forward.
Who are shaping the future of Connecticut's economy. Welcome to the BizCast. I'm Amanda Marlowe, and today we are joined by Michael Brooder, the Hartford office managing partner at Marcum.
Thank you for having me, Amanda.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And this is a pretty special episode for us as we are getting to release our annual report of Connecticut businesses, which we work on with folks over at Marcum.
Yes, and we're excited to be a partner with CBIA in this endeavor for the last few years, and looking forward to talking about the results.
Yeah, and we're going to dive into the results in just a few minutes, but I want to start talking a little bit about you. Let people know who haven't listened before, who you are. Tell us, you've been with Marcum for quite a few years now.
Quite a few years, yeah. So Michael Brooder, office managing partner of the Hartford office for Marcum. I've been with Marcum now for 23 years. Excited to watch the growth of the firm, where we stood when we joined about 1,500 people to today about 4,500. So it's an exciting time of growth. We're seeing it, and we want to see kind of Connecticut continue that same path.
And there's many focus areas that Marcum supports business on. What are some of the ones that you work on specifically?
Yeah, so I'm actually our national leader of our technology and life science group in the audit space. So I head up startup companies to public entities in the technology, software, IT services, or life sciences, the biotech stage, mostly startup biotech research type companies.
And we've seen a lot of those in Connecticut.
Yes, we have.
Tell me about kind of what you're seeing from them right now this time.
They're been a little slow. The fundraising has been tight for them. It's all about milestones for the biotech space in getting to that next milestone, and FDA approval, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and raising the appropriate capital to get to that next phase. So the capital has been tight. We're hoping that by the end of the year that it starts to loosen up a little bit and the availability comes out and companies continue to kind of progress in their research opportunities. So.
Well, let's get into the survey a little bit. It's a big book this year. A lot to go over. We're definitely seeing a lot of similar responses as last year, which maybe says, okay, it's not just a one and done. This is a trend that we're seeing. Obviously, concerns still with inflation, supply chain issues, but really the cost of doing business, companies are really still struggling with, and workforce. So tell us a little bit about kind of some of the things that maybe were jumped out to you, and kind of reflect what you're hearing from businesses.
Yeah, I think, the outlook of 23 kind of changed. I think last year, people were expecting 22 to be a good year, and then 23 to be kind of everyone's talking the R word. That it seems like it's not holding true, although we did see a decrease in the GDP in Connecticut in the first quarter, which the report notes. Hopefully we can maintain and kind of continue in the status quo. But I think, like you said, everything's status quo, it seems. I don't think there's any huge optimistic of growth. There is some, which hopefully we can change that here. But, we want to see more of that, more growth, more new businesses starting, and more people coming to Connecticut. That's kind of the goal. Yeah,
and that has a number of factors, right, including, like we said, affordability for the businesses, tax breaks where they can, but also for the workforce.
That's right.
How often do you hear that term, workforce?
Yes. These days it's labor, and costs. That's what we're hearing across our client base. It's the fight to retain talent, and how are they doing that? There's some very innovative ways that some of the respondents have noted in here. But we're seeing companies go out and explore different opportunities to retain talent, and it's very competitive out there right now, we're seeing.
Were you surprised? There are a lot of businesses looking for talent, a lot that are engaged with some of the programs that the state provides, that other organizations provide, but still some that are still kind of dipping their feet into that.
Yeah, it wasn't. That was shocking that the state is trying to push Always can do more, hopefully, but does have some initiatives for employer workforce, and it didn't seem like a lot of the respondents were taking advantage of it. And it might be the specific trades they're in and respondents as you look at who responded in what industry they're in. It just might not be beneficial to them. But hopefully they can look towards the state and really understand. And maybe it's an education process. Maybe it is people need to go out to these companies and educate them on how to use the programs that are out there that are offered. So hopefully that can continue and grow.
And, two big voices here, right? We've got the state has always been a top place for talent. If you look at some of the businesses, what's the most, attractive thing about being in Connecticut? It's the talent.
That's right.
However, there is this lack of skilled talent as well because there's not enough people. Is that kind of what you're seeing?
Yeah, if you look at the open jobs and the availability of the people that are there to fill them, it's just that they're not there. And, it seems like the state is seeing decline in population still. So I think it's both what you said. It's the cost of businesses and the cost of individuals. When you look at, some of the respondents in here talked about taxes, but not only state taxes. They talked about real estate taxes. They talked about property taxes, motor vehicle taxes. Those aren't all business related. Those are a lot of personal related as well. So I think, we have to look at ways, and then obviously the healthcare costs, right? Which all affect the employee. And how do we help reduce those so Connecticut is an attractive state to move to as opposed to moving out of?
Yeah, and that's something that businesses really didn't have to think as much about.
That's right.
Maybe several years ago.
That's right, because the people were here.
Yeah, and certainly healthcare is one area that we put into the report this year. We've asked about several years in a row, and this year the results were just so interesting. Employers are really looking to healthcare as a way to help attract talent, but the costs are not very affordable for them.
No, they're not. And what was interesting is there was, I believe it was under 50 employees are not required to provide health care, but in the competitive environment that we're in, the majority of them still are. Because they have to provide that benefit to potential employees. So I thought that was interesting that, when you talk about labor shortages and trying to attract talent, they're still going out of the way to pay for those high cost items because they have to. And it's important to their employees. So, I think that's a good thing. I'm hopeful that we can find ways. I know there was acts or bills that were introduced that kind of didn't make its way through or didn't get voted on. Hopefully we can find ways to reduce those costs, because what we're hearing is healthcare costs, going forward are only going to increase and continue to increase. So.
And especially for some of the startups that you're working with, right?
Yeah. Well, for them, it's nearly impossible.
Yeah.
When you're talking really small employees, 10 or less, it's very hard. And some of the insurers, quite frankly, as we mentioned in our report here, some of the insurers are shying away from those companies. So it's really, they have to look at group alternatives or something else out of the box, as opposed to being able to obtain their own insurance.
And that's hard. I think we've even heard from some of those small 10 or less. We have these great employees, but now they are moving on. They're starting families. They need health insurance, and we're losing them, not because they don't like working for this company, but because they need these benefits, things. Yeah. And that's really been a big draw. Another thing that we obviously, it was released in line with the survey. We saw wages also going up. Connecticut paying 4% higher in 2022. How do you think these things are impacting businesses who are, have been holding on, doing a very good job of sustaining their business, but these costs that they have to keep rising?
Right. Well, to be competitive, and we talked about the labor shortage, so you have to increase the compensation. At the end of the day, or some other type of benefit package to hold them here, to keep them here, to attract them. We do have one of the highest, if not the highest, I think at least the top 5 average salary, I think it was in the United States. So we're seeing that growth. I think it's good for the employees, but for the employer side, it's cost, right? And at some point, we've been, they've had some positive results as they move through 2022. I think although it's a positive outlook for 2023, it has dropped a little bit what their expectations are. I think that it's a burden of cost, and eventually those costs will catch up to you. And unfortunately, I think what happens is as you continue to increase costs on the wages, there's only so much expense that can go around. And when they reach that kind of saturation point, they're going to have to make other decisions within the companies, and that may be coming. If we continue to see these wages rise as they are. I think it's good for the Connecticut economy, but the GDP has to kind of mirror that and continue to grow for those companies to be able to sustain those wage increases.
Yeah, they're trying to invest in their workforce.
That's right.
Because they think they're prioritizing that, but can the economy keep up?
Can the economy keep up? That's the question, yeah.
And another thing, I know we talked about a little bit before, we have a lot of open responses in this survey, and it's quite a lengthy survey. Not a lot of business leaders, have time to keep writing in. This year we saw quite a number of responses, and we tried to reflect that in the survey, putting some quotes in. What do you think that signifies? Employers really showing more attention,
Yeah, for sure.
And I think passion.
Yeah, I think it is passion, attention. I think they went through a period. I think business owners went through a period in COVID that they had to hunker down and focus on the unknown. Right? No one knew what was going to happen. No one knew the outcome. No one knew the ramifications. No one knew supply chain was going to be hurt. So the last few years it was repairing and understanding and adapting, quite frankly, because they did well. So I think now that they're through that and they're able to persevere through that period of the last 3 years, they're focusing on, okay, we were able to get through that. Let's figure out how to grow, and let's figure out how to be competitive, and let's figure out how to make Connecticut a place where people want to do business. So I think that's what that's what the Connecticut business leaders are looking at and are passionate about. That's why I'm here, and I want to make sure, and that's why we partner with you to do this. We're only successful as the clients in Connecticut, right? As the companies are in Connecticut, and we want to make sure that we provide the opportunity for Connecticut businesses to be successful, because that means we could be successful as well. So.
And there's only so many pillars that you can provide.
That's it. Yes,
right?
That's right.
Okay, yeah, very interesting. And for listeners, if you the survey's on our website, you can kind of dive in there. It gets sent out to top executives every year. We saw a wide spectrum of responses from large corporations, over 500 employees, to some of our smallest businesses in Connecticut.
And what the other thing I thought interesting in the responses is 99% of the companies in Connecticut are classified as small businesses. So everyone thinks of the large companies that operate here in Hartford, but the majority of what keeps Connecticut ticking is the small businesses.
Yeah, certainly. So many businesses.
They seem the one, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but they seem to be the ones that are hurting the most too when it comes to cost. The big businesses can absorb those rate increases and salary increases. The smaller companies have a harder time, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we, consistently pulled the numbers for businesses with less than 50 employees, being the smallest numbers. And every area that you see, it's ticking up and up and up for those companies. Because some of the bigger businesses, yeah, you're right, they are kind of sliding through, realizing areas. But for these small businesses, there's only so much that they can withstand.
That's right.
And we, know a lot of small businesses didn't make it through this time.
That's right.
So that's certainly something that we're hoping to continue to see improve for small businesses. But this is a survey, a report of Connecticut businesses, majority being small businesses.
That's right, majority.
And I think people forget that. So
That's right.
I appreciate you pointing that out. Why do you think specifically for these small businesses, it's so critical to act now in terms of these rising costs? Obviously, there's some things that nobody has much power over, but why do you think now is such a critical time to act?
I think the state is in a good spot, a better spot than it has been, let's put it that way, in a long time. I think businesses are healthy. And you always want to try to do stuff when you're healthy, things are in good, as opposed to the alternative when you're up against the wall and times are tough. So I think it is a good time to act and try to get things done to try to help grow. They got to the point where they are under the high cost circumstances. I think we can get Connecticut to that next level, attracting businesses as opposed to seeing some of the businesses moving out. And as for small businesses, I think they want to act now because most of them are family businesses, right? Or family are here. They're not in the southern states that you mentioned that they're trying to get pulled from. They're not in other states. Their family are here. They want to stay here. They want to operate here. Where the big businesses, they don't have that connection to Connecticut, although they've been grateful in staying, the smaller businesses want to see the growth of the community, want to see the growth of their family. So I think that's a huge reason on why they're trying to act now.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these small business owners, they have so much in the game, right?
That's right.
They can't just pick up and leave because, maybe business would do better in another state. Right. But they have a priority for their workforce, for their families, like you mentioned. So.
And I think, there are some good things that when we talk about the living situation here in Connecticut is probably second to none. We have access to some major markets real close. That's a curse and a benefit. But there are a lot of good things. We just need to fix the things we can fix, I think, and I think it'd be a lot better.
Yeah, certainly. We talk about the negative because
that's right.
we harp on
because
these
we want
things.
to fix it.
we want to fix it, and but certainly, still one of the top responses for why Connecticut is because of the location, because of the access, like you mentioned,
the knowledge, the people that are here.
Yeah, the way.
Although it's low, the people that are here. We need more.
We know that the workforce that we have is strong, and it's really about filling those holes, right?
That's right.
How do we attract more people to understand the life that we enjoy living here in Connecticut?
That's right.
Certainly. And as we kind of reflect on the report, the past few years have obviously been very difficult. You've seen it all. And I'm sure as a leader, you've been challenged too. Is there anything that, you've learned specifically that you think, or even just hearing, a lot of executives?
Yeah. Back to office. I don't know if 5 days a week is in the cards anymore. I've learned that. We all learned that work can get done in any environment, really, from anywhere, which is good. But with that, we've also learned that collaboration is still a very important aspect of business. And we think that, as we've been through the last 3 years, collaboration is probably one of the biggest things that is missing right now, to some extent, that I think we need to get back. And again, it might not be an everyday thing, but I think it's very important to get back into the business community and collaborating with our peers, with our competitors, with our clients, vendors, whoever. I think that's an important thing.
Is there anything that you guys have done at Marcum to bring employees together more?
Yeah, just as the same as everyone else. We say food, drink, and entertainment. We've done the Argoats games, UConn games at the Excel Center in the winter months, happy hours, those types of things, and it seems to work great. I don't see a full 5-day work week anymore. So there will be some type of remote flexibility, and it's good, and I've enjoyed some of that as well. So it allows you to do some things personally. It's just, I think the collaboration needs to make sure it still exists. That's all.
Do you notice when people do come back for those events that there's a quick burst of energy for sure?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's
people like, as much as they like working from home, they like interacting with their colleagues.
Sure they do. Yeah, and we see it. We see the excitement for people coming in, catching up with colleagues, talking about what's happened, and it's great. And we want to see more of that, so we're hopeful.
Certainly. Well, a lot of hope going into this next year.
There is.
And we're looking forward to hearing from some business leaders at our economic summit on September 14th. So we'll see everyone there and look forward to diving in this report more as well. And I do want to mention that we have the manufacturing report coming out as well in October, which takes a deep dive into how manufacturers are really taking some of these results, and we asked them a few more questions.
Great.
So, all right. Well, thank you for listening to this week's BizCast. You can listen, like, and subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Please leave us a review and let us know if you have ideas for a future podcast. And for a full list of episodes, head on over to CBIA.com.